All right, so lecture 3 in my spring 2021 assumptions about debate series. I might make the more formal one of this and just kind of go down. So leave a comment, leave a question, anything in the comments here. If you're a student of mine, go to the class Discord server and let's talk about these things. I also want to make more of these videos about some of the assumptions you have about debate and see whether or not I can kind of make those a little bit more complicated through thinking about debate the way it should be thought of as a tool of inquiry and a process of living with and within discourse that we all need to engage in order to really fully understand the role of perception and the role of discourse in shaping the reality that we think we're merely describing when we debate and talk about it. We're doing a lot more than describing it. To that end, let's think about this assumption about debate, that debate is about separating lies from truth. So in a debate, people will be caught flat-footed, their lies will be exposed, that kind of thing. So it's about having the maximum amount of facts and the truth about the issue so that you can expose all these other lies and all these other perceptions the audience might have or even your opponents might have about what it is that we're facing. This way of debating is not productive at all. Instead, you want to think about debate as a contest of proof. Who can prove it better? As a contest of proof, your options open up greatly for what you can do in a debate to make your interpretation stand out. Remember, from the last 2 lectures I gave, debate is about making an interpretation based on what we already believe, the principles and values we already believe, making an interpretation of how that topic fits into what we already believe or don't believe, and that's why one should agree with the position that you take on that topic. With that in mind, it seems a little weird that people would debate in terms of, well, I have the facts, and here are the facts. Here's what you're missing. Here are the facts. Here's the data. And the problem is it makes us quite lazy to think of debate as a contest of facts, or if I just add the facts like some kind of toilet cleaner, it's just going to make the water nice and clear and blue for some reason. Why is that? I mean, that looks weird to me. Shouldn't the water be clear? I don't really. This is like a video for like weirdness about toilet bowl cleaner hangups I have. But the point is like it's not just going to fizz and clean it away like some kind of cleaning product. That's not how truth and facts work. They require a lot of help from us because they are trapped and mired in discourse like the rest of us. A lot of people think facts and truth are extra discursive. That is, they come in and clear away all the talk. And you hear that a lot from people. They're like, let's get away from all the rhetoric. Let's just look at the facts. I'm sorry, but the facts are made out of rhetoric too. It's like, instead of eating cake all the time, let's just eat cupcakes. That'll be better. I mean, it's the same stuff, dude. Like, it's the same material. So I don't know what you think you're getting away from. I think the reliance on facts and truth in debate make people lazy arguers and lazy debaters because they just express it and they think everybody should see it the same way. But unfortunately, facts and truth need a lot of help from us because perception is the only way that people are going to get access to them. So instead of thinking in terms of facts and truth, I'd prefer in debate that we think in terms of attitude and motive. 2 words given to us by the great rhetorician Kenneth Burke. Attitude is the response one gets and the perception one gets of reality once they think they've figured out the motives in a situation. These motives can be about a person, an institution, a country, a way of thought, anything, right? So you could say, oh, well, Freudians are just really, really, really obsessed with sex, so I kind of discount their view of everything because it's just about weird sexual hang-ups. You hear people say that all the time about Freudian theory. That is not, it can be presented as a fact, it can be presented as a truth, but it's better from a debate point of view to think of it as a relationship of an attitude based on a motive. This gives you ways in to try to prove that your position is better. Because you can either address the motive and say there are other motives at play that are more likely to be the primary motive, or you can say that attitude is misconstrued based on the motives you've presented, or that attitude is not the appropriate attitude to have based on what we know about this topic. So, for example, facts and truth don't really help us that much on a topic of like, should the United States be involved in the Paris Climate Accord? That's a controversy that we're facing right now. Donald Trump took us out of that. Joe Biden is putting us back in. I don't know how you feel about this topic, but let's think about debating it in terms of facts and truth instead of motive and attitude. Facts and truth. Okay, the climate is changing dangerously fast, and it's going to harm the way of life of millions of people around the world, even lead to millions of fatalities, create climate refugees, security issues, military destabilization, the list goes on. Facts about it. The Climate Accord has the right temperature reduction goal to keep the climate change that's happening in a way to where we can adapt to it and we won't have all this loss. It's an internationally cooperative binding agreement to where all the different countries are doing it. It's not just one country taking on the brunt. And it seems like it's pretty good for curbing the economic effects of having to change all of our emissions and production standards and things like that it might require us to do. Now, that's just kind of like just off the top of my head what I know about it in terms of facts and truth, but that doesn't really help move somebody who's very committed on one side or the other. I think instead you could say, what are the motives of the Climate Accord and what should be our attitude towards it? Well, what are the motives here? Cooperation. That's an excellent motive, especially on something that involves the place where all of us live together. Cooperation, the global community. What are some other motives? That we can act, that we should act and take responsibility for the past. So we should try to reduce our emissions and the way we do things, the way we pollute, because taking responsibility is a very good thing. And then what are the motives? Some people might say the motives of the Climate Accord is like very global governance or weird conspiracy theory stuff. And that stuff I think you could say is how likely are those motives? I think I'm getting ahead of myself there saying about responding to motives, but the creation of motives lead to the attitude. So if these are the motives that people in favor of the Paris Climate Agreement have, then this is the attitude we should have towards it, is that it would be better to participate than to not. And you see how soft that sounds in comparison. People respond to soft more than we absolutely have to do this now. But social media has made people think that that's a really good way to argue because it makes us feel good. And there'll be more about that in a later video about the aesthetics or the affective feel of debating, about how it makes us feel so good to be right and to dominate other people. But this is not a constructive way to think about discourse. This would be the dark side of discourse. If discourse is the force, that's the dark side. That's the Sith mode. Because it's about the pleasure of dominating others with this new power you found. There's a whole discourse about this by Plato, and it's not canonical Star Wars. It's called the Gorgias, and it's about this very question of the pleasure in dominating others through persuasion subverts and destroys the ability of discourse to work towards the public good. Like we lose a lot of good in society when we really get obsessed with being able to just convince or speak about any topic with authority. And it's very Star Wars-y. I like that one. It's about is it right or is it good for people who have the power to dominate and to control minds and move people around like they would with the Force? Is that something that we should allow people to learn, or not at all? And I mean, the recent movies kind of address this too. So anyway, we can talk about Star Wars in another video. Let's go back to this. So when you're arguing for motive and attitude, your entire attitude changes about what the debate is about. So here's some examples of things you can do to create arguments in this form of debate. The places you can go to create arguments are things like, well, you already believe this. You believe in this motive, this set of motives, this set of motives. So your attitude should be to also believe the topic. So you already believe that international cooperation is good. You already believe there's a climate crisis. You already believe that we should take action for our responsibilities. So the attitude that we should have is that the climate agreement is good and we should be a part of it. It doesn't really matter if it's factually not going to work. It doesn't really matter if it's not going to hit its target exceptionally well. And the only reason that would matter is if the economic cost of doing it was more destructive than not acting. And that's always a very difficult thing to prove in terms of that debate. The second one, you should believe this because of the beliefs you already have. So not only do you already believe this, maybe, well, you don't believe this, you're kind of against it, but the beliefs you already have would lead you to that conclusion. So this is about what are your motives and how do I know in other aspects and other policies that we support. You already believe that this thing is a good idea, so why wouldn't you support it? Number 3 is for the more aggressively oppositional, which is, well, I know you don't believe in this, but this is the one time that you should make the exception and believe in it. This is the exception to all of your good principles that you already hold, to all of the good motives that you already have ascribed that are out there. This is the one exception to that where you need to violate those principles and act for reason X. And that can be a pretty good argument you can make in terms of attitude motive. I know your attitude is against this. You feel like this is evil and wrong, communistic, socialistic, whatever. But in this one case, there are enough exceptions that even though your belief is right, you should move away from those principles and act this time because of the exceptional circumstances that are around us. And the last one is, even though it doesn't fit with the way that you hold what you believe currently, even though this isn't an exceptional circumstance and this doesn't really jive with all the things that you believe currently, this is something that it would be better for everyone if you did believe it. If you did allow for this attitude to change, it would improve people's lives around you. This might be a good argument for things like universal basic income, where it really thwarts against people's ideas that the attitude towards people who don't work or don't want to work is that they're lazy or good for nothing, when it might be that they're just artistic, and they want to just kind of do their own thing, or they don't feel like they should have to, that being born gives you a right to food and shelter and water. You don't have to work for those things. It's cruel to make people work for those things. They might have these kind of beliefs. But most people, when they see someone out of work, the attitude is, oh, that person is lazy or not worth anything, or they just don't want to do anything. There's something wrong with them. And that's a hard one to push against. But you could say, even though you believe that, and that's a hard attitude to change, in this case, it will make everyone around you happier to have some stability in their income, to the point where they don't feel like they have to go to work just to buy food and stay alive. They will always have that safety net. So people around you will be happier, they'll work harder, they'll work smarter, and they won't be suffering from illnesses and things that will make your job harder wherever it is that you work. Something like that. Or, that's kind of a bit of a utilitarian claim, but it might be better to say something like, they won't be suffering. They won't have to do the suffering that leads to kind of bad behaviors at work or bad behaviors in society that upset all of us. It could be an argument like that as well. So debate becomes a contest of proof. Who can do a better job of articulating the motives at play and what our attitudes should be about them, rather than who's got the most recent or best facts, who's got the fake news, who's got the liberal New York Times or the Bezos Washington Post. This kind of stuff isn't interesting. This is what turns people off from debate. What turns people on to debate is a discussion about what motives are in play and which motives are the true ones, which motives are the ones that are actually in play, or the ones that we should attend to in the situation, and what should our attitudes be about those collections of motives. This is what makes debate really interesting, and if you start to speak that way, you speak softer and you're speaking more towards the audience and less calling your opponent an idiot in so many words and saying, here are the facts, if you don't believe them, I don't know what to tell you. That's not how we convince people, and that's not how we use debate as a discursive form that allows us to inquire after our own motives, inquire after our own principles, and see if we are really, really, really have thought this through well enough. That's really the power of debate. So think about it as a contest of proof rather than a contest of truth will help you do a lot more work and speak in a lot more attractive and better way to audiences to get them to really see the wonderful insights and the value of your own opinion in discourse on controversies that you debate about. Next video will be video 4, and I really don't know what it's about yet. So surprise to everyone, including me, when you watch it. All right, thank you for watching this. And again, questions in the comments, other debate assumptions you want me to take on, put in the comments, and put them on the Discord if you're a current student.